on the War Crimes Tribunal in Sierra Leone. Jeffrey has been counsel on many landmark human rights cases around the world, both here in the UK for the European Court of Human Rights and around the Commonwealth. He's the author of a number of books, including Crimes Against Humanity, The Struggle for Global Justice. And so I'd like to invite him to come and say a few words about West Papua.
Thank you. Treated in West Papua by crowds of people who are wishing us well and hope that we can do something to solve their problems. And this, I think, is often the problem indeed for international law and international lawyers, that it creates expectations, and there is a duty on us to try to fulfill those expectations, and I'll talk about how we might do that in a minute. Retreated to West Papua, the Portuguese to East Timor, but the Dutch were not doing enough, but doing something by the early 60s to bring West Papua to a readiness. As John has said, there were some elections being held, there were some leaders being supported, not enough of course, but at least something when the Indonesian saber rattling stopped. Started, and Indonesia in effect took over for 6 years before the fraudulent Act of Independence. And what a fraud it was, John has sketched it. There is no way, I don't think any court in the world, looking at the historical evidence, could accept that that act complied with the United Nations principles. You've got to remember, as those of us who are lawyers know, that international law works against the background. The Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples, that was a General Assembly resolution which said the subjection of peoples to alien subjugation, domination and exploitation constitutes a denial of fundamental rights, is contrary to the Charter of the UN, and is an impediment to world peace and cooperation. There couldn't be clearer language. That is precisely what the Melanesian people of West Papua have been subjected to: alien subjugation, domination and exploitation. Exploitation perhaps by American companies like Freeport, but via contracts that profit Indonesian generals and politicians. The rule, of course, the great principle of self-determination is that all peoples have the right of self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social and cultural development. That right, if it has any meaning, has been denied to the people of West Papua. The sham vote was a sham indeed, because what the rules say is that first, those who have a sacred trust, as the Dutch did and as the Indonesians bought into that trust under the New York Agreement, had this duty under the General Assembly resolution, first of all, to bring the territory to an advanced stage of self-government with free political institutions, so that its peoples would have the capacity to make a responsible choice through informed and democratic processes. It's an open question whether by 1969 the people of West Papua had been brought to that stage of having free political institutions. That can be argued one way or the other. This is where a colonial power integrates with indigenous people. Should be the result of the freely expressed wishes of the territory's people, acting with full knowledge of the change in their status, their wishes having been expressed through informed and democratic processes, impartially conducted and based on universal adult suffrage. And there is no way that taking just over 1,000 men, frightening them, having them subjected to threats, and then asking them to cast a vote as a kind of representative of the people of West Papua can live up to that General Assembly condition. In fact, the giveaway, surely, is that the vote was unanimous. And it's always corruption when votes of that kind are unanimous. So there is no court in the world that would, I think, uphold the act of free choice as any other than a fraud. So the Hugh Lung was mentioned after all these years of transmigrasi, where where the Indonesians have brought their own people into West Papua, just as the French have done to New Caledonia. I mean, this isn't an anti-Indonesian, this transmigration place to which this, and I should add perhaps that as lawyers there are a lot of brutalities over the years, recent years. We can see them in Amnesty and other reports. There are opportunities, if the evidence can be obtained, to get some redress. But I want to consider what this organization can do in relation to the big question: how can the position be reversed? How can the Melanesian people, who are now about 1 million strong, can be given control and over their own country? How can it be given back to them? The place that would normally make this a decision is the International Court of Justice.
We've had some really thought-provoking comments, and I think the rights of Indigenous people, the rights are now, I think it's time that perhaps people circulated and had the opportunity to perhaps have a closer conversation with Benny and our two speakers. With that, I'd like you to give them a warm thank you.
When people, they cry, last 48 years, nobody hear their voice. So I put the bones of West Papuan people in two bags. So this is a bone already covered up by Indonesia, but now through the international lawyer for West Papua, we're launching a UK chapter. That means the bone will take care of this room and go throughout the world. So I want to give these two bags. Inside they contain the message, the crying of people of West Papua to both of you, and Robert and both of you.
As you mentioned,